The ECB's aggressive package sees all 3 rate cuts and QE expanded by €20 billion. Holger Sandte, Nordea. Holger, the bazooka is back. Draghi has certainly gotten a market response, but what is the main takeaway from the announcement and, of course, the press conference?
Well, the main takeaway for me is how dovish the ECB is by extending their purchases by 20 billion a month and by going into corporate bonds. That said, they come closer to the limits. If you heard him talking about negative interest rates, about that under normal circumstances now they won't do a lot more. And also euro dollar is reacting massively on that, and now we have the euro stronger. So the main conclusion for me is, they can still do something more likely on the QE side than on interest rates, but they are coming towards their limits.
The ECB is essentially paying banks to borrow money. Is the situation in the Eurozone as bad as this onslaught suggests?
Yeah, you could draw this conclusion that it makes the euro area economy look really, really bad. But what he's trying to do there is to get the lending channel working again. Cut rates, extend QE, and then do a refinancing operation where banks actually are being paid money to do that. And that is it's not the last bullet from the ECB, but it is the attempt to repair the lending channel or to keep it working. I think a more negative sign on what he thinks about the euro area economy is the pretty low growth projections he came out with. But I have to say I find them pretty realistic to expect just 1.7% of growth for next year. That's pretty realistic. So the euro area is not at the brink of recession, but it is indeed in deep trouble. But the ECB alone cannot cure all the evils of the euro area.
The initial FX market reaction was not necessarily surprising. The euro dropped 1% against its peers, but has since strengthened, perhaps amid a subsequent sense of confusion. Even though they never admitted it previously, is the single currency no longer priority, but instead to protect the transmission mechanism?
Yeah, I think there's some truth in that. I think Draghi had to learn that it's very, very difficult to get the euro weaker in an environment where other central banks have the same idea of weakening their currency or at least prevent them from strengthening. Look at Bank of Japan that ease and might ease again. Look at the Fed that is hesitating hiking rates, and at Bank of England, which has no intention to hike anytime soon. So I think the exchange rate channel has become less prominent for the ECB. And it's more the more traditional lending channel, the transmission channel for around banks that is important. And that's why they did this new TLTRO2.
Now, all eyes were on this meeting. Next week, we have a host of central bank decisions. Will there be any wishing they could rip up the script and go back to the drawing board for their policy decisions? Does this change things materially?
I don't think for the Fed, for example, they pretty much probably expected an aggressive ECB. So the Fed will decide on its own on what to do, and I think they won't hike, but that's not due to ECB. We have the Norwegian central bank next week, where we expect easing, but we also expected that ahead of this ECB meeting. And then I see we also have the Swiss central bank. Looking at the Swissy versus the euro, I wouldn't expect the Swiss National Bank to ease policy next week. But you can never be sure, and they will all look into the ECB's aggressiveness, but also into Draghi's sentence that under normal circumstances now interest rates have bottomed. So Draghi did not keep the fantasy for much further easing alive today, in my view.
Holger, wonderful to speak with you. Thank you. Well, what did you think of Mario and the central bank's policy decision? Let us know by commenting below. But for me and for now, it's goodbye.